This is the 2021 Splatterpunk Award nominees. Splatterpunk is a genre that's sometimes called extreme horror. So this is sort of the bloodiest, most extreme stuff that's out there. These awards, when it's not a pandemic year, these awards are given out at the KillerCon convention, which was originally in Las Vegas, but has since moved to Austin, Texas. I went in 2019, and I was planning on going to the convention anyway, and that also happened to be the year that I had a short story nominated for the Splatterpunk Awards, and I did not win, mostly because every other story in the category was better than mine. And I'm not just saying that to be self-deprecating. I love this genre, but there were like some legendary writers in the categories in the year that I got nominated. And the stories I hadn't already read, I went back and read other people's, and they were phenomenal. Like, I would have picked any other story in that category besides mine, and Ryan Harding actually won that year for short story, but he's a legend in the splatterpunk and extreme horror genres. I won the gross out contest that year, which I was pretty proud of, and I won the gross out contest again this past year in 2020, just reading gross stories or whatever. So I got back to back wins. That one was actually it was an online convention, but it was really cool to be part of that convention, not just winning the contest, but being able to see all the readings and just really great authors. It's probably my favorite online convention. I'm hoping the convention will be in person this year, but we'll just have to see. And of course, as a transplant patient on immunosuppression, even when I get the vaccine, which is hopefully going to be soon, I got to be careful. So I may not be doing any conventions again this year, but I guess that's the sacrifice we make sometime. Wanted to talk about the people in these categories. I haven't read all these books yet, but I plan to. But there's several I have read, and they represent some just exceptional talent in sort of the most extreme genres of horror. All right, so for best novel, Pandemonium by Ryan Harding and Lucas Mangum from Death's Head Press. There's a lot of Death's Head Press books this year. They're kind of like on the forefront of extreme horror writing. Ryan Harding is a legend in extreme horror and splatterpunk. He deserves every award he gets, and he's been doing this for a long time. Lucas Mangum is very talented. Gods of the Dark Web is a book that he wrote that I really like. Saint Sadist is another novel he's written that I really like. This Pandemonium is sort of a... it involves wrestlers and wrestling, but it's just an over-the-top sort of extreme horror book. Tome by Ross Jeffrey. Dust by Chris Miller, also from Death's Head Press. Dust and several other books on here that I'm going to point out is a splatter western. So it takes the kind of the old Wild West western genre and adds in sort of extreme horror and splatter. And it mixes in the supernatural. It mixes in other genres of horror. So it's sort of a cross-genre series of books. And every single book I've read from that series, the Splatterpunk Westerns, has been awesome. Chris Miller did a great job with Dust. I believe that was maybe the second or third book to come out in that series. But all of them are good. There's some others on here that I'm going to point out because they were just some of the best books I've ever read have been those splatter westerns. All right, Slaughterbox by Carver. Pike is also nominated. Gone to See the Riverman by Christopher Triana. Christopher Triana won Best Novel, I think it was 2 years ago. And he may be the new best extreme horror writer. So Christopher Triana has done some just exceptional work. Now, unfortunately for him, or fortunately, however you look at it, he's competing against himself in this category because he was also nominated for They All Die Screaming, also by Christopher Triana. And then number 7, if I could only pick one novel to win this year, I would pick this one, The Magpie Coffin by Wiley Young. This was the first splatter western to come out from Death's Head Press, and it was amazing. Wiley Young is a fairly new author to publishing, but he's put out some great work. Just anything you pick up from Wiley Young is good. He has a few novels out, but The Magpie Coffin may be some of his best work, and it's the one that caught my attention to these splatter westerns. And at that moment, I was like, this is one of the most amazing books I've ever read. Now that being said, if any of these other novels on this nomination list win, I don't think it's the wrong choice because they're all great. But just my personal bias, The Magpie Coffin is my favorite out of that group. Best novella, and again, novella just being a little shorter than a novel. The Slob by Aaron Beauregard. Bella's Boys by Thomas R. Clarke. I really like Thomas R. Clarke. Again, he's not new to writing, but he's fairly new to publishing. Bella's Boys, I'm impressed that he got the nomination with this one. It was a very good book. And he had the first work I read from him, and I don't know if it qualifies novel length, was called Good Boy, and it was sort of a Watership Down meets the zombie apocalypse. Group of dogs that are surviving the zombie apocalypse, and it's told from the dog's point of view, and he does an excellent job of capturing that idea of showing how dogs might really react without, anthropomorphizing them, so they're not, talking like people or anything like that. So that was an excellent book. And Bella's Boys kind of moves into cosmic horror, but it clearly was extreme enough to make this list. So very proud of him as an author, and I just like him as a person too. Ross Jeffrey's doing very well because he's nominated here too with Juniper. Red Station by Kinsey Jennings, also a splatter western. She is another author that is fairly new to publishing, but again has done excellent work. The fact that she was included in that splatter western series has been great. True Crime by Samantha Kulsnick. The Night Silver River Run Red by Christine Morgan. Christine Morgan won a Splatterpunk award last year. She has been doing this a while and is recently getting the recognition she deserves. She's one of the most exceptional horror writers I know, whether it's the extreme horror category or not. Christine Morgan, there's some of her short story work that I feel like really expressed her talent, and her novels were good too, but I always felt like there hadn't been a work that really showed everything that she was capable of that I had kind of seen in sort of the short story writing. Then this one came out, again, another splatter western from Death's Head Press, The Night Silver River Run Red. When I read that, I was like, okay. Actually, I got to read an advanced copy of it because I was talking so highly of this series that the publisher offered to let me read one early, and this is one of her best works. I think this novella does a better job than any of her longer works of showing what she's capable of as a storyteller. So if I were starting anybody on Christine Morgan as a author, I would pick The Night Silver River Run Red. And again, it's in that wonderful splatter western series that has not disappointed me yet. So very proud of her. How Much To by Matt Shaw, which was self-published. Matt Shaw, I really like him. I've heard him on podcasts and other places as well, and it's really cool to see him getting some recognition here. All right, best short story. What I love about this category, and again, one of my complaints about a lot of genre award ceremonies is a lot of times they get to be very inward centered. So you'll see like a lot of the same people being nominated, and sometimes their work doesn't stand up as well. It just comes to who knows who kind of thing. One thing I've noticed about the Splatterpunk Awards is that when I pick up the works and read them, I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. So I don't get disappointed the way I do with some other writing awards. I've always loved the short story category best. And again, like I said, back in 2019, I had a story nominated and rightfully lost. But going back and reading all the other short stories, I was just blown away by the level of talent. So when I see a short story pop up here, I know that I'm going to be picking up the work and reading it because they're just always so excellent. So Incident at Barrow Farm by M. Innenbach. M. Innenbach actually has a splatter western out too, so that's one worth checking out. Full Moon Shindig by Patrick C. Harrison III. I got to meet him briefly, and I know him online, and very impressed with his work. Phylum by Tom Over, Footsteps by Janine Pipe, Next in Line by Susan Snyder. Susan Snyder is another excellent horror writer, and she's been around a while, and she's been publishing a while, and has been doing great work for a while. I have yet to be disappointed by something I've read from her, either short or a longer piece. Everything that I've picked up that had something in it by her, she earned her spot in there. My Body by Wesley Southard. Wesley Southard, I think he either won the novella or the novel category. I hate that I can't remember which is which, but he won one of those categories, I believe, last year. And again, highly impressed with his work, not just the more extreme stuff, but Slaves to Gravity is a novel he co-wrote. It may be novella length too, that he co-wrote with Summer Cannon, and it's really elevated work. Like it's really a piece that demonstrates their talent as writers individually and together, and is one of the best books I saw come out last year. So he's very talented, and I've enjoyed his short stories too. Resisting Madness is a short story collection he recently had come out, and all the stories in there are great. He's been writing a long time. Wesley Southard, when I went back I've met him recently, we did readings together and things like that, but I went back and looked at like one of the earliest anthologies I ever had something published in, probably close to 10 years ago or more, probably over 10 years ago at this point. And when I looked in the table of contents, he had a story in there too. So he was producing work back at the very beginning of when I was putting work out. So he's been doing this a while. And finally, The God in the Hills by John Steffens. And of course, these are places that I would go to look for good short stories. Now, collections is a single author, or in some cases, a collection can be two authors that are putting their work together. You can still categorize that as a collection. War of Dictates by John Balstisberger. John Balstisberger is a very talented poet. I believe War of Dictates is a poetry collection, and he does horror poetry. There's actually an incredible amount of great horror-themed poetry out in the world. It's not as easy to find all the time, but I've seen just some very talented authors, poets, I guess I should say, that put stuff like that out. John Balstisberger has really gotten my attention in that regard. What he does with poems and with different styles of poetry, and the way he puts them together, and the sort of the, even in a short poem, he will tell a bloody story that is just amazing to carry on. It's the kind of poetry that, like, I think if I could take this and capture it in my prose, like when I write a novel, I would really be accomplishing something. So War of the Dictates, again, nominated for a Splatterpunk Award in the category of collections. Cerebus Rising by M. Enenbach, Chris Miller, and Patrick C. Harrison III. Number 3, The Essential Sick Stuff by Ronald Kelly. Rhapsody in Red by Peter Molnar. Also nominated, Visceral Collected Flesh by Christine Morgan and Patrick C. Harrison III. I believe there was a version of that came out a while back, but I think this is a reworking of that includes a lot of new material, so it qualified for nomination. Again, Christine Morgan, one of the best writers I've seen, and her short story work really is really a place where she shines. The Comfort Zone and Other Safe Spaces by Tom Over, and Blood Relations by Christopher Triana. Again, Christopher Triana is an artist in the bloody, the macabre, the splatterpunk. So he is a guy that has demanded attention from the genre, and he has rightfully gotten it. All right, the last category in this year's Splatterpunk nominations for the best extreme horror work is Best Anthology. I really do enjoy anthologies, and there's always a risk when you go into an anthology that you're going to have, a few bad stories, or worse, a lot of stories might be misses. One thing, again, I really appreciate about the Splatterpunk Awards is the fact that everything I've looked at that they've nominated for the last couple years has really delivered. So it's not a set of awards where I find something, I'm like, I don't understand why this is on here. So these are anthologies that would be worth picking up, simply because if they've made these awards, then I imagine every story has to deliver in these works. So Chew On This is edited by Robert Essing. Each of these stories is involves food or eating in some way, so it just ranges through all sorts of genres, but a pretty extreme anthology. I actually submitted a story to this and was rejected, but that's all right. It probably means that the quality is really, really high if they didn't take my story, right? Brutality, edited by K. Trap Jones. The Evil Cookie Publishing is a publisher he put together. He's also one of the guys that leads the Splatter Club on Facebook, which is really the best extreme horror group online. They just kind of share movies and books and things that they enjoy in the genre and have discussions about it. They sponsor book clubs, so people on the site will all read the same book and then discuss it and that kind of stuff. But he started his own publishing company, and this was one of the first ones that came out. I've already read stories in there that are really, really good. It's all centered around alcohol as a theme. Also from K. Trap Jones, Welcome to the Splatter Club. This one was with Bloodbound Books, though. Read that one, and again, it's one that all the stories deliver. Worst Laid Plans is edited by Samantha Kulsnick with Grindhouse Press. Grindhouse Press is one of the best. It's one of the best extreme publishers out there right now. Crash Code, edited by Quinn Parker by Bloodbound Books. Again, another publisher that's worth checking out. Number 6, If I Die Before I Wake, Volume 3, Tales of Deadly Women and Retribution, edited by R.E. Sargent and Stephen Pajic with Sinister Smile Press. This is one I need to check out. I have not read this anthology yet. Psy Wars, Classified Cases of Psychic Phenomenon, edited by Joshua Viola with Hex Publishers. Again, if there's only one takeaway from this, I think that it probably is that Death's Head Press has demanded a lot of attention. They have a lot of awards on here. And the splatter westerns that they put out, several of which are nominated on this list, shows that series of books is great, and each author that wrote a book in it has delivered. I have read a bunch of them, spent way too much money on them by buying all of them. I haven't gotten all of them yet, but I'm working my way through, and every single one I've read is delivered. I haven't found one that I'm like, oh, I wish I hadn't have read this. But the best of those, in my opinion, is the first one. Again, no disrespect to the others, because like I said, I really enjoyed them. But the Magpie Coffin by Wiley Young. If you want to check out the splatter western books out there, I would start with the Magpie Coffin. Wiley Young just has a great feel for the gritty old west storytelling, but then like the bombastic, over the top styles of splatterpunk and extreme horror. It's great stuff. And these books, they mix genres together, but they deliver just really unique stories that I haven't seen a lot of different places. So if you're looking for good horror, you can't go wrong by checking out the Splatterpunk Award nominees from any year and picking books off of there. You know you're going to get something that delivers for this very specific genre of horror.